Shalom, this is Adar. Uh, I want to say Kahala Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. I'm going to do a quick little lesson. Little milk for proving who Israel is. Right, so I'm going to try to get this over kind of quick. Try to make it easy to understand, especially for people just coming into the truth. Uh, if you've been in this any amount of time, you understand there's a lot of color scriptures in the Bible, contrary to what the Christian Catholic churches teach, right? The Bible is full of physical descriptions of people, of God, of Yahweh Shah. But when identifying and proving who Israel is, the first place you want to go to is the curses in Deuteronomy 28. So without any further ado, I want to go to Deuteronomy 28 and 45. It says, "Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign, and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever." So these curses are for a sign. They identify who the Israelites are according to history. Therefore, a wonder. You're going to read through these curses and you're going to have to think about what people on earth can line up these events in their history with what's going on in this chapter. And it says, "Upon thy seed forever." So this is something that's repetitive. Every time we go off, we break these laws, statutes, and commandments. This is something that happens. These are curses that are brought upon our people, right? So I'm going to skip around a little bit. Probably won't go through every curse 15 through 68, but I do want to get the majority of it just to paint a picture of who these people are, how we know who these people are. Right, so I'm going to start at verse 25. Deuteronomy 28:25. "The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies, and thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth." So, over here on the Western Hemisphere, we know that the Israelites are the so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans. But throughout the Bible, we see over and over that the Israelites would be scattered into every kingdom and nation under heaven. So, let's go to verse 64. It says, "And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone." So the wood being symbolizing Christianity, the stone symbolizing the Islam faith. Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans tend to assimilate themselves into other cultures, into different belief systems, because they lack their own identity. They don't know who they are, right? So real quick, get Jeremiah 17:4. "And thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee. And I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in my anger which shall burn forever." So Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans over here, we have a disconnect with who we are, who we were originally. And this causes us to assimilate into other cultures and hold on to the traditions of other nations in a search for what we can connect to, right? So going back to Deuteronomy 28, it says, "And among these nations shalt thou find no ease." This is verse 65. "And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, Would God it were even. And at even thou shalt say, Would God it were morning. For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see." So, over here in the Americas, black, Hispanics, and Native Americans we're hunted. We're treated like second-class citizens, treated like animals. They have our Northern Kingdom brothers, their families locked up in cages, separating families. There's no, we don't have any assurance of life. We don't know if we're going to live tomorrow. In my younger life, I really didn't know if I was going to make it to 17, 18, 19, 20. This is something that a lot of our people can relate to because of the conditions we live in, right? Actually, let me get Lamentations. Lamentations 4 and 17. Also, our people are also the most forgiving, even though we've gone through the most. And like I said, us assimilating into all these other nations, cultures, traditions, belief systems, we're looking for something to save us, something to connect to, not only to for safety, but as an escape, right? Lamentations 4:17. "As for us, our eyes have yet failed for our vain help. In our watching, we have watched for a nation that cannot save us. They hunt our steps, that we cannot go in our streets. Our end is near, our days are fulfilled, for our end is come. Our persecutors are swifter than the eagles of the heaven. They pursued us upon the mountains. They laid wait for us in the wilderness." So, in this passage it symbolizes a specific nation, or it identifies a specific nation symbolized by the eagle. So when we go back into these curses, let's go to, I'll start at verse 47, Deuteronomy 28:47. "Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things." Right? So here in this land that these Europeans have taken over, colonized, settled, conquered, they've become the ruling class of people. And we have to go to them for everything we need, our resources, our necessities in life. It says we have to go to them in the want of all things. Continuing, it says, "And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee." So we understand that black, Hispanics, and Native Americans, initially on contact with these Europeans, we were subjugated to slavery. They put iron on our necks, on our wrists, on our feet, right? And it says, "The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the ends of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor shew favor to the young. Right? And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. So, this is going into how they treated us, right, since the time they got over here. They didn't care how old you were, from infants to the elderly. They killed us off the same without any remorse. They took our resources for themselves in the end to kill us off, right? Let's go to verse 31. It says, thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. So, as far as our resources, especially dealing with the Native Americans, in the 1800s, when the Europeans were trying to conquer this land, trying to settle this land, they killed off the main resources of the Native Americans in order to weaken them so they could get the upper hand in war, right? Let's see. Let's go to verse 33. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. So, like I said, all our resources were being consumed by these parasites. And it says, so shalt thou be mad for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. Ecclesiastes 7:7 says, surely oppression makes a wise man mad, right? So let's go to verse 29. It says, and thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. So, when you're looking at who's the most oppressed people, especially over here in the Western Hemisphere, which is America, Mystery Babylon, spiritually Egypt and Sodom, we are the most oppressed people in the world, right? And it's because we're under these curses. It says, let's go to verse 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. So we're at the bottom of society, and for the most part, any other nation that comes to America, it's not hard for them to get up above you economically, financially. So-called Africans come over here, Chinese, East Indians, Arabs. They come over here and they receive help from the government to establish themselves in this land. But the people who built this land, Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans, don't receive any help. And I mean, it's set up that way for a reason. Like it said in verse 48, the Most High is the one that sent these people against us. He's the one that set these people up in the state they're in and put us down in the low state we're at, right? Going back into what was said in verse 25, the Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them, shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. Okay, this is the starting point for this would be 70 AD. the siege of Jerusalem, right? So when Yahushua was on the scene, if I can get that real quick, he prophesied and gave us a prophecy about what was going to happen to Jerusalem. All right, I'm gonna start Luke 21:20. It says, "And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains." The mountains represent kingdoms, nations, specifically Africa, right? We know that Israel is on the same continent, is on the continent of Africa. It says, "Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter Salakia, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be a great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled." So, according to the prophecy that Jesus gave, Yahushua gave, once Rome start compassing Jerusalem, we were supposed to get out of the land. That's the starting point of us being scattered, or at least the southern kingdom, right? The majority of the southern kingdom, little pockets, and some of the northern kingdom was still in the land. But we fled into Africa, like it says in the curses, we would go out against them one way and flee 7 ways. Going back into these curses. Okay, we'll keep going on this siege, the siege of Jerusalem, right? Verse Deuteronomy 28:52. "And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustest throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy God hath given thee." Speaking on the same thing that Yahushua was speaking on. These are the things he was saying has to be fulfilled. These are the days of vengeance, right? Verse 53. "And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which the Lord thy God hath given thee, in the siege and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee." So, in this siege, it got so bad, them compassing Jerusalem, we couldn't export or import anything. That's why Jesus said, "Y'all got to get out of this land. It's not going to be nothing to eat. They're going to kill you, right? You're going to fall by the edge of the sword and then be led away captive into every nation under heaven." And then it got so bad that the people who were stuck in the land, who didn't get out, had to resort to eating their own children, right? Now, we're going to get into the minutia, the details of how we know these things identify specifically Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans, right? One thing we have a big problem with as a nation of people is the hate we have for one another, the lack of love, if anything else, right? So, verse 54 says, "So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil toward his brother." So, it's a big problem with our people that we love and we forgive all these other nations for everything they do to us, even the things they do to us now, things that are currently going on. And we're so quick to forgive these people, like this Amber Geiger case and the uh, family who lost their son, their brother, right? They're so quick to forgive their oppressors, but at the same time, we can't show that same love and forgiveness for our own people, right? So this is a curse that we go through because we have had this disconnect from our God, from our people, from who we are. We lost love for our people, right? It says, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. A lot of our people grow up in broken families, father not being there, either due to him just leaving, due to him being locked up, due to him being killed prematurely to where he can't raise his children. All right, we're under these curses, and part of this is that our family structure has been dissolved, it's been discontinued, it's been destroyed. Right. So it says, I'm going to start at 56. The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground, for delicateness and tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear. For she shall eat them for the want of all things secretly in the siege and straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. So, just like there's a certain hatred between the men, there's a hatred as far as gender wise, even appearance, which is a point of contention that causes me to go to the curses way before I choose to go to any color scriptures, right? Because these people have used gender against us, pitting the woman against the man. They've used physical appearance against us, pitting dark-skinned people against light-skinned people of the same nation, right? And then with the Willie Lynch letter, if you haven't read that, you should, just to understand how deep this goes, right? Actually, let me read. Let's see. Let's see. Slovakia. Yeah, we'll read 48 again. It says, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord thy God shall send against thee in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Right? Part of us being destroyed is not just a physical destruction, it's also mental and spiritual. They disconnected us from our God, and then they killed us mentally by censoring what we could learn, keeping us from reading, censoring the things they taught us, the things we could teach our own people. As far as this Bible goes, during slavery, they would set up a person of our own nation to teach us the Bible, but then they would make sure that they only taught certain things from this Bible, like how to be a good slave, right? But they don't teach the consequences for how a person should be punished if they are not treating their slaves properly, right? the Bible speaks against rape, and this is something that went rampant with these Europeans throughout every nation that they go to. Um, and there's so many things that they try to pick and choose. They accuse us of cherry picking certain things from the Bible, but the things that were going on during slavery that were being taught in the churches, um, like if you look up slave Bibles, they have certain passages that don't appear in the Bible. They took them out. Actually, real quick, this is something that they don't have. If I'm not mistaken, they don't have this in the slave Bible, but it comes to mind because I watched Birth of a Nation maybe a month ago, and it's something that Nat Turner spoke in the movie. I won't say he did it historically, but this is something that when he started waking up to the oppression that his people was going through, this is something that he said he went back through this Bible and they're not teaching us everything. I'm reading this Bible and I can see that these people are the devil. These people are not godly people, right? This is Exodus 21 and 16. It says, and he that stealeth the man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. Right? So this is something that the Bible clearly speaks against. Stealing a nation of people and then putting them into slavery has consequences. And these nations have not paid their recompense for the actions of their forefathers yet, but they will. All right, let's go back to the curses because there's a few more. Um, as far as our slavery goes over here in this Western Hemisphere, let's go to verse 30, Deuteronomy 28 and 30. Thou shalt betroth the wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Salakia, thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. So during our slavery, not only did they separate families, but they would take your wife and rape her. Right? This is something that's portrayed in every slave movie that I can think of. Birth of a Nation being the most recent that I've watched. Roots, Amistad. Uh, it's not it's not something that we don't understand has happened, right? But there are places in the U.S. now that are trying to erase the slave history completely. Some states are trying to take those events out of the textbooks and teach that we were hired servants. We worked for wages. That that these atrocities that these people committed never happened. Right? So it's good to understand your own history. They say if you don't know your history, you're destined to repeat it. And if you don't know your history, then you don't know where you're headed in life. Right? So it says you're going to betroth the wife and another man to lie with her. Once your slave master took your wife and slept with her, there's nothing you can do about it. And then you and your wife are left there broken because of these events. Right? It says, thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Black Hispanics and Native Americans built this country from nothing with their sweat, tears, and blood. Right? The White House was built by slaves, but no slave ever lived there. Right? It says, thou shalt plant a vineyard and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Um, We planted these cotton fields, these agricultural fields, and we sowed and harvest these things for these other people to reap the benefits from. Verse 32 says, Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people. Thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. So during the slavery era, these last 500, 400, 500 years, they were separating families. Once we got off these cargo ships, they put us on auction blocks, and they did not care to keep families together, right? If the slave master only needed a child, someone who he could get at a young age so he could bring them up in slavery, so they didn't know anything else, he would take the child from the family, right? If he wanted the mother, he needed someone to work around the house or something else for a woman's work, he took the wife from the family. If he needed a man to work in the fields, he took the man. It wasn't something where they had to go and get the whole family. These people don't care, like the curses say. They didn't care if you were young or old. They show no favor to age or gender, right? It says, verse 41, Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. Sometimes I have a hard time just even think about certain things like this, certain things my people go through still today. Because I'm the oldest of 7, right? I have younger brothers and sisters that when I read through these things, I can't imagine what I would do, how I would feel if these things happened to my brothers and sisters, to my mom, to my father, right? But these are things that our people go through every day still today. My younger brother is locked up in prison and has been in there for about 5 or 6 years now, right? This is actually Isaiah